Well, many thanks indeed for staying with us here on the program. Let's get into our big and first conversation for the day. Of course, of our live to Abuja studios, where Mr. Chile Igbawa, member, Strategy Committee, Coalition of Opposition Political Parties, ADC, joins us live on the program. Mr. Igbawa, thank you indeed for agreeing to talk to us on the program. I mean, so INEC finally has recognized the David Mark-led leadership. Is this a big win for the party?
Yeah, thank you, Geoff, and good morning, listeners. I think it's a great milestone, I would say, because even though from within we knew that it was just a procedural matter, the other camps decided to make a big capital out of it, as if it was something that was untowards. But the ADC has met the requirements of INEC, and accordingly, INEC has finally put their stamp of recognition on the National Working Committee and NEC of INEC as constituted at the last NEC meeting. So we thank God for that.
So I wonder where this leaves the founder of the party, Mr. Ralph Nwosu.
Yes. Mr. Ralph Nwosu had said himself that he's now a floor member of the ADC. Recall that when we went into negotiations with the political parties for purpose of adopting them, ADC came out and said clearly that they were not selling their party, so there was no price on ADC. But they wanted the program that the opposition coalition had in rebranding an existing party and growing it. And they were agreed with the proposals that we put forward, and therefore they agreed to, surrender the platform to the coalition. But they are still part of this newly reconstituted ADC, NEC and NWC. Several of the officers are part of it, both at the national and, in fact, at the sub-national levels, the existing structures of ADC are still intact. So Ralph Nwosu, former chairman, had said himself that he is happy to be a floor member, but to see a party that he brought about grow by leaps and bounds. So that is where we are with him.
All right. So how about other voices who are perhaps perceived as aggrieved? There's Dumebi Kachikul, for instance. We understand there are some sort of litigations as well. There are 1 or 2 cases in courts as well. Are they also on the table right now?
Well, we are not aware of people who are properly aggrieved, so to say. Dumebi Kachikul came into the ADC a few weeks, was granted a waiver to contest the presidency. So he was a presidential candidate in the 2023 presidential elections, which he was unable, as we were told, to prosecute, and had challenges with the party, and the party accordingly expelled him. So whatever issues he has should be those of struggling to come back, regain membership of the ADC. They are nothing more because it doesn't have an office. Those other people who had challenges, who were officials of the party, INEC had brokered a peace deal, which all of them signed, and what was pending was to implement those aspects of the peace deal that require them to be reinstated into their offices. And I'd like to say that at the last INEC at which the new leadership was unfolded, the first motion which was passed was to reinstate all the officials who had been suspended for one issue or another. So we don't have any of their members who is aggrieved, so to say, because those grievances have been settled. And then as for Dumebi Kachikul, if he's fighting to, to be reinstated as presidential candidate for 2023, that is an invalid position. And in fact, nobody's contesting it, so he can just continue to be the presidential candidate for 2023 presidential elections. There's no contest with him.
All right. There's a lot to unpack with you, so let's stay with the politics for a moment. So let me say congratulations, because some of us want all political parties to be stable, from the APC to the ADC to the Labour Party, PDP, NMPP, because in this game, the more the merrier, so that Nigerians will be able to look at, in a democracy, the ideal of a democracy is the luxury of choice. So stability of the party is the beginning of that ability for Nigerians to have a choice, not the instability we witness in the political parties. So that's why congratulations are in order. Now that it looks like there's clarity as to the leadership issues, we hope this is the end for you who are members of the ADC because of the role the opposition has to play in stability in a democracy. The APC, I think since 1999 till date, I stand to be corrected, I don't think anybody did a more fantastic job than the APC did when they were in opposition. And eventually they kicked out the People's Democratic Party that held sway for 16 years. That's what democracy is about: alternative voices, alternative policies. So given that now, let me paint a picture, a little picture. 2027 is way ahead of us. Next year is going to be 2026, 2027, we're all running for elections and all of that. You are in the strategy committee. One of the things that the opposition or the ruling party is using as a flag against you is that if you are as formidable as you think you are, besides the names like Atiku Abubakar, Peter Obi, Rufai, and the rest of them, David Mark, Ralph Aregbesola, the list is long of all the people that have come into the party. If you are as formidable as you claim you are, by now we should be seeing members of the National Assembly, State Assembly, and even governors moving in your direction who are not comfortable with other parties. Why are we not seeing that happening yet?
Well, I think the APC as a party and government are just trying to test how far and how successfully they have been able to proceed with the idea to establish a one-party state. We have been in this game for many years, and we know that when people deny that they're not being cajoled into a political party, we know better what is happening at the backyard. We know that the intention of the APC and the Tinubu-led federal government is to have a one-party state. We have said this over and again, and it doesn't matter whatever arguments they try to put in the public face. The reality is there because the president himself said that he's very happy when he sees problems in the opposition. He's very happy about it. He announced it in the media. There are film clips to that effect. So when people say that, no, they don't intend, we say that that's not the truth. The truth is that they're interested in that. But let me say that some of the issues that were pending is one of which we are now discussing, the formal recognition of the new, structures of the ADC, which, are now legitimized. So some of the people may begin to come over. But of course, we know that some of the people who are moving over to the other side have their challenges. And they are being, cautiously threatened. Like we've all been told in the past that whatever your sins, once you come over to the APC, all your sins are forgiven. And we recognize that some of the people who are moving to the APC are doing so that they can have their sins forgiven. And since we are not in a position to forgive sins at this moment, we may not be a very attractive force. But I want to assure you that we are working with the people. People talk about structures, we talk about, members of the legislature, elected officials generally. You grow that as a party. And what ADC is doing is to grow the party from the grassroots. And that is what we're doing right now. And we believe that some of the people who are in government are actually a baggage at this time, considering the poor performance of this government. And that we know that the people are just waiting to throw them out. And what they desire is the alternative. And now ADC is providing that alternative. And I can assure you that beyond the names that I usually mention, there is a huge mass of Nigerians who are behind the ADC and who are willing to vote ADC into power come 2027. So I don't think we should be worried at this time about who is the big faces you are seeing and the big faces that you're not seeing. At the appropriate time, and I think that in a short while, you begin to see major movements. There are some of elected officials, of course, you know, the law, for instance, for legislators is that when you change your political party midway, except there's a discontinuance in the party, you lose your seat. But we know that this has not been happening. And some people are being careful not to do that so that their seats are not declared vacant. If we move to the APC, of course, your seat will not be declared vacant. But if we move to the ADC, certainly the following day you will hear that your seat is vacant. So people are being careful. But we know those that we are talking to, we know those who are talking to the ADC, and we know that at an appropriate time, you begin to see a change in the tide. But we are more, interested in the change that is happening at the grassroots. That is where the power belongs.
All right. So, there's a lot that you said in one breath. And the issue of defection, that's a different kettle of fish. As we said, the political class seem not to obey Nigerian laws, even though the laws are there. So let's just leave that aside. But where I'm going to with this, in terms of profiling of the party itself, or the personalities involved in the party, and this is quite important in terms of imaging and perception, to be able to gain support. This looks again, and this is an old argument, but since we're having you for the first time, maybe you have a different perspective on how to respond. It looks like an aggregation of old enemies who have now found a common enemy and have now aggregated as new friends. Isn't that what this is about?
Not at all. I think it has been overhyped, the idea of removing Tinubu from office. That is not the principal objective of the opposition coalition. The opposition coalition is worried about the manner in which this country is being run and is bringing up strategies that can take us out of the quagmire in which we have found ourselves. Now, when you just talk about the faces that you are seeing, there are those faces that you have not seen. The main grouse of those who are in the opposition coalition is that our country is being grossly mismanaged. That's just the fact, and we know this. Is it security? You don't see what is happening. They call sums. We're listening to programs on the channels this morning, and they're talking about budget performance. Now you tell us that you have a budget of 50 trillion, and you have spent 40 trillion, so that is a success. What has happened to those 40 trillions? Spending money, I've always said, is the easiest thing. Even an insane person can spend money even more rapidly. So telling people how much you have spent is not accountability on budget performance. Telling us what projects have been executed successfully and the benefits that are being delivered to the citizens is what amounts to proper accountability on budget performances. So ADC will begin to profile its people for purpose of the public. But more importantly, by the time we begin to unveil our strategies and programs for Nigerians, that is what is more important. And I'm sure that for those that already have had the knowledge of what's going on, because we have been unveiling this party at the local levels. And we're explaining to the people why ADC is here and what the objectives and plans of the ADC are. In fact, so removing the present government is not the principal objective. The principal objective is to deliver good governance. And now, when we talk about, political interests, like it's always said, there's always a permanent interest, no permanent friends. This core of leaders have had a go at governance. They have all seen where there have been failures, where there have been minor successes here and there, and they know that what the trajectory that was being pursued at that time is far better than what we're seeing now. And the idea is to retool this trajectory so that we get back to where we were going. Otherwise, like somebody noted on social media elsewhere, we're in reverse gear at the present. We're not moving forward. So once we begin to, to expound our ideas and programs to Nigerians, then we know that it's not a matter of the faces you are seeing. This party, for instance, believes that Nigerians are not looking at the real people. We have a population where the youths outnumber those who are 60 years and above. We have a female population that is greater than the males, and then they are not being involved in policy making, neither have they been involved in governance. This party intends to involve the youths, so by the time we are done, you will see that more youths are coming on board. They may not be as popular as the names you're already calling, but if you look at even the reconstituted, National Working Committee of the ADC, you will see that it has a heavy youth content as well as a heavy female content. That is the trajectory that the ADC
Mr. Igbabwa.
So it's like a transition.
Yes. So that we can get in more questions for you before we look at the state of the nation. So, I mean, because I was going to ask you what perhaps is the ideology of your party, but it looks like you're having to ask Nigerians to, exercise some patience. Your party is going to reveal, perhaps at the right time, what your ideology is as a party, because that's something that we do not see in this part of the world in terms of our politics. But let me also ask you this question, because I wonder, with this news of your party perhaps being recognized now by INEC or recognized now by the David Mark-led leadership, I wonder if you think this is a vindication for INEC as well as President Bola Tinubu, whom you and your party have accused of fueling a one-party state.
It is a vindication for the law. It's a vindication for the rule of law. Of course, INEC has done what the law requires them to do. I'm not sure that President Tinubu will be the happiest person as at yesterday when this announcement was made, because he has said, so as I said in the beginning, that he has come on television to say that he is very happy when he hears about the rumbles in the opposition. So now that we're having a stabilizing opposition, I do not expect him to be the happiest person. So our accusation on Tinubu still remains. But our confidence is in the law, and we're happy that INEC has chosen the path of legality rather than the path of impunity in this matter.
So heading into 2027, are you very confident about the performance, the integrity, the fairness of the electoral umpire?
You see, from hindsight, the outcry is there that you need some reforms. And these reforms have to come about. At least the low-hanging fruits must be plucked. There are some that may not be able to materialize before 2027. But those issues that need to be put in place before 2027, we need to do them so that INEC can be strengthened to be able to perform better. We know in some aspects, INEC is somehow overburdened. So when we want to complain against them, we still are conscious that in the present structure and the manner of operation that they have, they may not give us the best. But they have not also given us the best in areas that they have clear legal structures and strength and powers that they should do. I'm sure that we're all in Nigeria, and we saw what transpired in the 2023 elections. And I can tell you that, like you already know, that a majority of Nigerians were not happy with what transpired. But we're looking forward. Sometimes somebody makes a mistake, and then out of that mistake, he learns a lesson. We believe that INEC has learned its lesson, and that come 2027, they will make adjustment in the areas that need to be adjusted. Certainly, we need more transparency in the elections coming up in 2027.
So that we're going to talk about policy alternatives, but let's stay with elections and politics for a moment. What position do you think? I know that the ADC is still putting its house and its acts together, but you are in the strategy team. What's your position as far as electoral reform is concerned? So for the generality of Nigerians, one of the two highlights for them is first and foremost that the law recognizes and insists that results should be transmitted electronically. Because as by the pronouncement of the Supreme Court in the last election, it clearly shows that it was just a viewing portal. That is not what Nigerians expect, that the viewing portal should have the same effect and force just like the Form EC8A. That's one. The second part is the appointment process of the chairman or the commissioners, national commissioners of INEC. So for ADC, what is this reform?
Yeah, regarding the issue of transmission of election results, the law has been very clear, and during, in the months preceding the 2023 election, INEC Director of Communications or Commissioner in charge of education, voter education, was on radio and television every day assuring us that there will be electronic transmission of results. But that was not the case. When the transmission started, we were all happy that at least it had started. But midway, they simply just said there were glitches, and then they went into voicemail. And by the time they came out, we saw something totally different. I was one of the directors of the presidential campaign for the PDP, so I know that we had our own, situation room in which we were watching, and we designed to receive our results directly and not through INEC. But we're frustrated. So we believe that that should be the case, that mandatorily. And I believe that maybe we need to put up stronger arguments since some of the tribunals appear to be saying that it was not a mandatory provision. I believe it is a mandatory provision. And if the mandatoriness is not fully entrenched or couched in the right language in the law, then that should be done, because in this age we cannot continue to do what we did in 2023. So as for electronic transmission, that is where we stand. Now, the issue of appointment of the electoral body. Independence starts from the manner in which you come about. So if the electoral body, the chairman, not just the chairman, he is there with commissioners, and they ought to really enjoy that toga of independence. And I believe that, as is done in some climes, allowing the president to nominate a chairman merely declared by the National Assembly is not sufficient. We need to put in some processes that require a more democratic process in which all political parties are fully involved in the process of appointing the electoral umpire. So that, and then of course, their tenure, security of tenure, should not be dependent on what the ruling party or the ruling government says it is. It should be properly entrenched in the law in a manner that they feel very secure doing the right thing. Otherwise, when somebody works with his eyes looking back at whether the Mr. President has an axe behind him, you cannot expect him to do the best.
All right,
so they may be trying in the circumstances in which they find themselves.
Okay,
but I also think that beyond what the law says, if an electoral umpire has integrity, you can say, I either do the right thing or I leave.
All right, I think
you don't need to be sent away. You can say, I either resign or I do the right thing.
Great point you've raised, but sometimes the counter-argument is to the effect. I think maybe the argument should be, or we can escalate the argument to be, how independent is the legislature? Because when the president makes an appointment, he submits to the will of the National Assembly. We will screen these candidates to know whether they are fit for office. So on that end, we may have to, because the legislature is composed of members of the ruling party and, of course, the opposition. So that's another part to it. But I want to move on quickly before we begin to wind down. In terms of the policy direction, I think Bola Tinubu, the president, is quite clear what he's doing. Capitalism is his forte. He's not big on socialism or welfarist policy, even though Section 16 of the Constitution kinds of had that nuance of welfarism as enshrined in our ground norm. But he is very clear, removing all of the subsidy, because he felt that, look, from what he met, over 20-something trillion naira in terms of subsidies from electricity to PMS to supporting or defending the naira to the backlog of $7 billion to airline and all of that, the encumbrances were too much for the country to begin to bear. So he said, okay, all of this wage bill, let's kick it out of the window. The argument is, those of you who are in the ADC, what difference are you going to bring in terms of policy direction? Because the president is saying, I'm going this way, I'm not welfarist, I'm capitalist, and that is it as far as the policy is concerned. In fact, the welfarist element is more like a stopgap or, what do you call a palliative, just to hold on while the capitalism is being built. So what's the alternative?
Well, clearly, even when you have a direction as he has chosen, the question is whether he's even pursuing that direction in the proper manner. You come here and then you said you're kicking out, subsidy on petroleum products. You say you are kicking up subsidy on electricity and all that. Now, what is your plan for the people? First and foremost, Nigerians were already being highly impoverished because of insecurity. What we expected this government to do was to first take care, even as required under the provisions of the Constitution, that the fundamental objective of government is the protection of the lives and property of the people and their welfare. Now, the government came in, the level of insecurity was bad, efforts were being made, and we could see a trajectory. So you could say, okay, maybe by so time, there's going to be some improvement in this area. But this government has come in to take security as just one of the issues that are on the table. Now, we know that 70% of our population, we say, is involved in agriculture, and they're in the rural areas. Now, they were not asking much from government before. Just give us the security so we can do our farms, we can feed our families, we can raise some income, and eke out a living. Now, this same 70% of the population is being completely removed from their farms. They can't go to their farms, and the government doesn't appear to be interested in that. So you are just taxing people, and not bringing about means of improving their incomes. So I don't see how you expect a people who are overtaxed and who have no source of income to pay those taxes. So one, they have undermined Nigeria's security because they have no program, as we can see, on how to deal with the issue of insecurity. If we deal with the issue of insecurity, farmers will go back to their farms, and then they will go back to where they're not asking too much from you. Just let us do our farming, sell our farm products, pay children's school fees, feed our families, and cloth. Then, if we bring the other things, we take them as additions that our government has brought.
We are absolutely pressed for time, so
the people
just allow me.
Just
a moment, Mr. Yes, because we are absolutely pressed for time, and we have to round off our conversation with you. So I'm just in my mind wondering what kind of conversations you are having with your ADC leadership and the big names and big wigs we have in that party as regards two critical issues which we have just touched on, the issue of fuel subsidy. So if by chance your party, the ADC, makes it to power, becomes the #1 in the 2027 elections, because I've seen your history from 2007. I think the highest you've come is 4th place in 2007 and 2019. So perhaps you get to the Aso Rock in 2027. What will be the position of your party? Are you going to bring back or remove or stay with what has happened? That's #1 on fuel subsidy. Secondly, the issue of tackling insecurity, state police. What's the position of your party as regards those two issues?
Well, on fuel subsidy, we have said it has been poorly managed. You may not restore fuel subsidy in that manner, but you can improve the incomes of the people so that they're able to buy the fuel. Now, if we improve the incomes of the people, those who own vehicles can buy the fuel, those who move by public transport can pay their fares, and fares will come down. So those are the issues. There have been some effort at CNG, and we know that if that is pursued properly, it may be a relief. It is not being done. So an ADC government, come 2027, as we believe, is going to introduce measures that will cushion the effect of the removal of the subsidy, and then to manage it in a way. Because you remove subsidy, you have money coming in, you are not telling anybody what you are doing with the money, and then you want to introduce 5,000 tax, 5% tax on fuel at the pump. Countries that are taking this pump tax are taking it because they are paying subsidies. Now, if you're not paying subsidies, why do you go back and tax again? Because you have already removed the subsidy. So what's the benefit of being a citizen in an oil-producing economy? So that's the first thing on subsidy. Now, regarding other aspects of governance, the ADC is working on these things. I do not want to preempt because as a strategy committee, you work out these things, but you wait for agreement. Until they are fully agreed upon, it will be inappropriate for me at this time.
So you're not going to tell Nigerians whether or not...
But I can assure you...
You're not going to tell Nigerians whether or not you're going to...
of Nigerians very well.
I was asking you, so you're not going to tell Nigerians whether or not you're going to perhaps adopt this issue of state policing to bring an end to the incessant killings we've witnessed in many parts of the country?
State policing is a welcome idea, and I believe that if it's properly handled, even the present policing system, we have community policing. It's an alternative. You can either start with community policing before you go to state policing, because there are also some challenges. So if you want to introduce state policing here, that would be good because you will now have policemen who are conversant with the working environment, but then you must put in place proper laws that avoid those police institutions being converted, you know, to personal thugs by political leaders.
Well, it's a fine place to leave it. We must thank you indeed, and thank you most kindly for agreeing to talk to us on the program this morning. We've been speaking with Mr. Chile Igbawa, Member Strategy Committee, Coalition of Opposition Political Parties, the ADC. Thank you indeed for coming on the program.
Thank you, Geoff.